Ashley Parov is a dancer and teacher at Brigham Young University. She began dancing as a child, but she says that she hated it for the first few years. It wasn't until she performed in the Nutcracker that Parov really found a love for ballet. Through her teenage years, she danced with the Contra Costa Ballet Center and, later, the San Francisco Ballet. After graduating from BYU, she joined the Company C Contemporary Ballet, where she performed principal roles from renowned directors and choreographers. Parov then obtained an MFA and began teaching. She has worked on many projects and is one of the artistic directors for January's production of Swan Lake. Today, Ashley Parov is here to present Oh Dear Blossom, a dance film that was created to highlight the experiences and work of women artists. This project was designed to immortalize a performance, which fits with the love of performing that drew her into ballet at the beginning. Please join me in giving Dr. Parov and her team a warm welcome as they present their film, Oh Dear Blossom.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I'll get right into it. Blossom, Oh Dear Blossom, is a ballet that was created by choreographer Eva Stone. I am here representing her. She lives in the Seattle area and has submitted some videos for us to watch, but I'm going to be representing her and our costume designer, Priscilla Howe, who also couldn't be here today. This piece, I'll let Eva speak to her process a little bit, but she staged it on Theater Ballet, which is our performing company here at BYU, in the fall of 2021, and is set to 5 pieces of music by Blossom Dearie.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Eva Stone. I am a choreographer and teaching artist and the creator of Oh Dear Blossom. Blossom Dearie was a singer, songwriter, and jazz pianist who had an outstanding career from the mid-1950s all the way up until she died in 2009. What's unique about her work is that most women in jazz were jazz singers, and not many were jazz pianists or composers, and Blossom Dearie was both of those things. She was very well known in jazz circles, but didn't have the same commercial success as, say, Ella Fitzgerald or Doris Day. I fell in love with Blossom many years ago and was always looking for some reason or commission to be able to set a series of dances to her works. I chose 5 pieces by Blossom Dearie for Theater Ballet, and that piece was created. I also had the great luxury of having costumes designed for the piece. And so I created costumes that kind of posed a nod to that time period of the early 1960s.
And so in the fall of 2021, Eva worked with our costume designer, Priscilla Howe, to come up with this design concept. And Priscilla, even though she couldn't be here, submitted some materials for me to present to you. You'll see on the left, this is the design concept that Eva sent to Priscilla and what she wanted the costume of the actress, in this particular case, to look like. All of the costumes she wanted in a gray, black, white tone or scale, with some pops of color. So this is the actress, which is one of the leads in the ballet. This is the lone boy in the ballet. He became the doorman in the film, which we'll discuss a little bit later. It looks like originally in the concept, perhaps Eva wanted some long sleeves, but they decided on the sweater vest. So there's a little translation there. In the ballet, there are 2 groups of corps de ballet, the girly girls and the tomboys. So these are the costume concepts for the girly girls. I don't have the concepts for the tomboys, but here are the renderings for the girly girls. So all in frilly, puffy dresses. And then the tomboys were in that capri style from that era. And then the renderings became this. And this is what was on stage in the fall of 2021. I have a clip of the proscenium version for you just to watch briefly, just to see the overall design once it was on stage. Eva wanted a purple lavender wash on the stage to offset some of the monochromatic scale of that. So this is in the fall of 2021 down in the Richards building. So just happy, kind of fun feeling in the piece. So that's just a little snippet of what it was before I thought about making it into a film. When I saw it, I really loved it. The choreography was so intelligent and smart, captivating. It spoke to me because it was mostly women in the cast. It was created by a female choreographer. She utilized a female vocalist and musician. And I just got thinking about how cool this would be in a film. And as you'll see, as the pandemic came about, it did bring a lot of change for dance. If you don't know Dance Data Project, they specialize in collecting data about gender equality in dance, among other things. And this is one of the things that they had in their introduction for their seasons 21 to 22 report. A number of studies have found that aging and declining audiences are not returning to live performances, and the pandemic has accelerated an already alarming decline in performing arts attendance. Concerningly, live performance audience numbers have yet to return to pre-pandemic levels. How companies choose to respond to this will be a critical factor in both their financial and artistic success. And while by no means is creating a film a financial endeavor for dance, it's not. I do see that there is change in this area, and it is something that might be able to draw people in that digital media, to draw them into our audiences, in to see proscenium dance as a way to bridge the gap that we see of the declining ages into millennials and Gen Zs. I don't know all the generations, but all of you, basically. And so I went to Scott Cook, who's not here yet, but he said he's on his way, so hopefully he'll be here, who is a director of film that I've worked with in the past. And I went to him and I said, hey, I have this idea about making a dance film from Oh Dear Blossom. He probably laughed his pants off because I had just come off a project, another film project with him, and the whole time I was telling him, I'm never doing a dance film again, ever. I'm never doing it. This was horrible. It was awful. The product was beautiful, which was awesome. So then I came to him and I said, so remember when I said, and he was like, this sounds great. Let's do it. So we went and talked to Eva about it, and this is Eva.
Then Ashley was coming to rehearsals and of course saw the final production, and then reached out to me saying how much not only she enjoyed the work, but was interested in making a film out of these series of dances. Luckily, because of the way the music had been structured, it didn't take long for me to set a libretto and find a place for a dance film, a plot line to be carried through all 5 sections of dance, of all 5 pieces.
Libretto, I think I saw Scott's head pass by. Yes, he arrives. Hi, Scott. The libretto, we start with Blossom, who is the main character, and it's basically a love story, her love for the doorman. She's interested in him. He is oblivious to her interest in him. They discover that they both have mutual interest. Of course, then there's a plot twist, and then, oh, they're sad, but they do end up together in the end. And that's the libretto, but it takes place in 4 main locations. And our production designer, Janice Chan, go ahead and come up, Janice, created all of these moods based off of the libretto that Eva had created for us. So I'm going to let Janice take it away.
Yeah. Wait, which button? Is it the big one?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Janice Chan. I'm the production designer for Oh Dear Blossom. So my background is in live theater. So when Ashley first approached me and told me about this filmed version, I was just so excited because the one thing I regret the most about doing any theatrical piece is that once it's done, it's done. So having something to hold on to and to look back on is always something that's so special to me. So let me go through my process a little bit. So on the left, you'll see that I have a ground plan for this department store scene. So we are in a different, I guess, an event space in the department store. So my inspiration for this was Mad Men, really honing in the 1950s, 60s aesthetic and style, and also elevating it. So it's not just cute, but classy. So on the image on the right, we see how we have the still from the actual shoot, and how all the colors kind of work together really well. Honestly, I was just so in awe of the costumes. Usually when I create a set, I only think about the set, and it's really hard to imagine how the costumes were affected. And so on the day of shooting, which we had one day to shoot this whole film, it was just so magical to see everything come together. And so we shot in this small studio, and the thing is, once you load in all your set pieces and you put your dancers on the stage, it gets even smaller. So something that was really important for me was to be able to create a set that's flexible. So we had these pipe and drape pieces that could move around, and we ended up shifting everything back a little bit so that our dancers could have room to dance. One of our other scenes is in the showroom. So this is in the same space as the runway room, except we struck all of the rose petals on the floor, and it was just much more open. And then here we had some really big dance pieces, and so it was really important for us to utilize that space, but while still keeping that aesthetic that we are still in a department store. So I left some of the display tables in the back. Here's a photo from the shoot day. I had an assistant who helped me put together everything. We were able and lucky enough to rent a lot of these pieces from the motion picture studios and also from the theatrical department here on campus. So it was really fun to go through their stock and to pick out things, and then pulling all the pieces together, adding some color to them so that our dancers can stand out in their black and white costumes. And then one of our scenes was set in the park. So this is a lot different from most of our other scenes which are held indoors. And so with the use of lighting, we were able to get that wash to give them like an outdoor feel. I found these grass hedge backdrops from Amazon. One thing about projects like this is that Google Shopping becomes your best friend. So I was really grateful for Amazon, really grateful for 2-day shipping. And so we had these park benches, these lamps, and so it was just really fun. And Ashley's dog was definitely a star. And then we had a scene in the break room. So before we landed on the studio to shoot the film in, we had another space that we were going to shoot in. And that space didn't have a break room. So one of the challenges for me was to transform the main playing space into a break room. And because we only had one day to shoot, that would have been a really difficult challenge. But lucky enough, everything aligned. We ended up with this venue instead, and they had an actual break room on the second floor, and so they would actually use this break room for the employees. The paint, everything, the furnishings, everything was perfect. It was exactly what we wanted in terms of color and style. I didn't have to do a whole lot. I just dressed it up a little bit, added some posters and things here and there. And then there was also a mirror in there. At first, I thought, you know what, we're going to have to cover this because I don't want us to catch the camera. But it ended up being really nice because there were some really cool shots where we saw the reflection. And Scott just knew what to do. So, and then the last scene, we're back in the showroom, back in the department store. Really simple. Again, this is one of the big dance pieces, but it turned out really beautifully. So here it is.
As Janice, Scott, and I continued to meet about production and Janice's designs became honed in, Scott really started looking at the types of shots that we would take in each scene and how we might play into the mood and experience that the audience had in those scenes. So I'm going to let Scott talk about that. Scott is our director of film, and he also mentored Brooke, who couldn't be here today because we were focusing on female artists and bringing females into every portion of the creation of this film. So he's been mentoring some female artists through this process as well, but they couldn't be here. So Scott is here to talk to them about this process for us. Here you go, Scott. Come on up.
This is our kind of our shot list. One of the fun things with projects like this is you want to do everything and you only have a couple hours to do it. And so we always try and make a really specific plan. And you can see that Brooke and I, and Brooke, wish she could be here because she's awesome. But Brooke had a lot of good ideas. And pretty much what we did here is we tried to plan how can we get all of our shots and all the content that we want? How can we give the emphasis to the specific moments so that we can tell the story while also capturing the dancing? And something that we did on this that both made our life easier and harder was we shot with 2 cameras at once. Typically on a normal show or a normal movie, you shoot with 1 camera so that you can light and position everything for that 1 camera. But the second you introduce a new camera, you have to start to think about, well, how can I put those cameras so they don't see each other? How can I place my lighting and my action so that both shots look decent? Both shots will have things that you can use. And so that's kind of what we did. And you can kind of see how we said, well, here's what we want this angle, and we'll catch this. Anyway, that's what I have to say about that. Kind of some overall things from the project that I really enjoyed. Filmmaking is a challenge, but we found that if we work well with our challenges, that always lends itself to more creativity. Another thing that I enjoy is just being able to work with very talented people. Both Janice and Ashley are excellent creators, and they also have their own perspectives. And so just having lots of conversations. I guess you guys met Eva a little bit, right, via video. Eva had her own ideas, and so there's a lot of dialogue constantly going on. And sometimes a problem you encounter might not be, it could be that you're running out of time. It could be that all of a sudden something doesn't look good, or maybe it's that you don't have enough money to get what you need there. But sometimes it might be that I have one way that I want to see it, and this person over here has another thing, or another way that they want to see this. And so there's definitely a dialogue of how can you get what you want and what I want and make it all look good. But I think that's one of the joys of the creative process. So is there anything else you wanted me to talk about, Ashley?
I'm thinking if there's questions,
Yeah. I will say a little bit too. Janice mentioned, and I don't know if you mentioned, but we did have a space originally booked. And this is the first time this has ever happened to me, where they had booked another project that same day. And we found out like maybe a week beforehand. And so luckily we had some backups in place, but it ended up being great because the place that overbooked us decided to give us all the equipment for free, which was great because they felt so bad, and we let them do that. So we could then use those resources for other aspects, and I think ultimately it turned out really well for us. So just pivoting, adjusting, communicating, those are the things we do. So
I have this next picture. I just like that the special effects in his most right column are the rose petals falling, and it's such a magical moment. And we have a still of this here. She has a fantasy scene where she's having this imaginary moment with her love interest, and we come to find out that it's not real. It's just in her imagination. But those beautiful rose petal effects on that, so nice. And I had all your shot lists in here, Scott, so you could have talked through them all if you wanted to. But this was our schedule in the prep schedule, right? This is how you ran that schedule that day, but just to give you an idea of that. As we were, Scott mentioned, and I previously joked about, making films is not a cheap endeavor. So we were really grateful. Part of my job as a producer is to find funding to support these projects. And we were really lucky to receive a grant from the Women's Research Initiative here at BYU, so we're really grateful for that. And as I looked to the female artist and more familiarity with those issues that we have in dance specifically, I found a lot of resources at the Dance Data Project. And I bring this up specifically because Eva is going to speak to it in the next clip. But there are lots of resources, not just this one. But they do make nice little bite-sized, consumable pieces for more general populations that aren't so scientific that we can't understand them as dance artists. And Eva will speak to a lot of what the Dance Data Project has found.
I've been choreographing work for 30 years, and I always have created from the point of view of women, and in all aspects of the journey of being a woman. Certainly, being a female choreographer still comes up against issues of gender equality in terms of leadership and choreographic commissions. A recent fact that came through Dance Data Project, which tracks where women are in dance in terms of leadership, choreographic commissions, and executive directorship, found that only 29% of all commissioned works and ballets presented by the top 50 ballet companies in the United States, only 29% of the work is work choreographed by women. So it certainly is something that that has been addressed in the dance world, but is still constantly a topic of discussion about where are all the female choreographers and why isn't their work having more of a presence in the dance world, especially on main stages in main ballet companies. So women, the dance world is predominantly women, in a field that is predominantly women. The question is, where is their voice in terms of leadership and choreographic voice? This is something I have focused my entire career on, and one that I, as a teacher of choreography at Pacific Northwest Ballet, where I'm on faculty, it's still very much part of our daily discussions. And I work with young women there at this school, teaching them the crafted skill of choreography in order to educate and support the next generation of female choreographers. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And thanks again for everything.
I did ask Eva, I was like, can I distribute your email address? She's like, of course, if they have questions, send them my way. She's really open. And a lot of what she feels is her continuing legacy is, as she said, educating the upcoming generations and really reaching out to younger audiences and bringing them along into dance. And she's so steeped in that belief of dance being transformative. And so she's a really powerful choreographer. We have some clips. I'm going to give it a little. We're going to give it a little tease of the film. We're still in the editing process, so we don't have anything that's a complete version yet. So this very first clip that I'm going to show you is Charade, it's called. I was planning on having my laptop so that I could pause during the piece, but this is being run in the booth. But you'll see one of the things that I really enjoy about being able to create a film is not only the lasting impression that we have of the piece or the work, but our ability to give the audiences different perspective through how we're using the film, how we're using design aspects, how we're using those choices to create the film. And especially in a couple of these clips, I really love the drone footage. And I feel like it lends to this specific portion of the choreography really well. So we'll see that, I think. Here we go. And this is unedited, like I said. So right here, there will be a voice coming over the loudspeaker saying, join us at 3 p.m. on the 3rd floor for Kitty LaRue, actress, dancer, singer, something like that. I can't remember what the script actually says. That's just a short clip of one of the first pieces that we did, and I actually I learned how to do a split screen just for you guys. So I actually put together a side by side of the original proscenium with one of the film versions of Doop Doop, which I showed you earlier, and this is in the park scene. Oh, just kidding. There's the side by side of the charade. This is the park scene. Imagine that Scott is shooting himself because it's all cropped and not looking nice in the split screen. But I love that uh, uh, being able to put it on film really introduces us to so much more emotion than when we see a filmed proscenium version. It's different when you have that phenomenological experience in the actual theater, when you're there to experience the dance in real time. And I don't feel like we're able to capture that with just a wide shot of the proscenium. So I really love that we're able to do that in film, which is one of the reasons that I enjoyed doing this project. And Scott, I already told them that I said I would never do another dance film, and then there it was. No, no more after that. But that is our Oh Dear Blossom. It's still a work in progress. It's still coming together, but we're excited, and I was really grateful for this opportunity to be with you today. Thank you.
Miss Ashley Parov, Janice Chan, Scott Cook, Priscilla Hugh, Eva Stone, and other colleagues work on Oh Dear Blossom, a dance film focusing on the work of jazz artist Blossom Dearie, reveals how important it is to consider feminine perspectives and experiences in art. Ms. Parov, through her work as both a producer and restager for this film, joined other women to create Oh Dear Blossom, featuring an almost exclusively female team with female producers, artists, directors, costumers, editors, and a female choreographer, a feat that is rare in the dance and film industry. Their work in Oh Dear Blossom shows how important it is to include women in all areas of art and film and dance, beyond those who are seen on the stage or screen, because it is often in the roles that are behind the scenes that men still dominate. Ms. Parov and her colleagues in Oh Dear Blossom, both male and female, are able to challenge the path of least resistance that would keep more men in leadership positions within production and instead branch out and elevate women's leadership and talent within production, which is beautiful to see for a piece of art that explores femininity.
However, Dr. Parov also acknowledges that the very fact that female artists are described as female shows that power imbalance in the industry. Indeed, art is art, and should be seen and valued simply for what it is, not for the gender of its creator. Male artists don't often have to have a gendered adjective next to their profession because male perspectives are considered the norm. Refusing to gender artists could be taking a step towards greater equality, and yet, gender is often an important aspect of the artwork that should not be ignored. Oh Dear Blossom is a beautiful and impactful dance and film that raises important questions about gender in both production and art. We'd like to thank Dr. Parov and her colleagues for their presentation today, and now we'll turn the time over to Sophie for our Q&A.
Oh, you're good. Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Sophie. I will be leading out the Q&A for us today. And following my question, I will ask the first question, and following the question, you all can come up here and answer questions. And we just ask that anyone who has a question to ask, come to the microphone and form a line just right along this wall. And you can state your name and your major and minor if you so desire, and then ask your question. And we'll also be receiving questions on the Zoom. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat so that we can read those off as well. But for our first question today, I just had a question. A main focus of production for this project was to step outside of social norms and work mostly through women. How do you foresee this project will influence your work following its production?
That's easy. Okay, so I was in the middle of last fall, about a year ago. We were in the development phase of this project, and I was seeking funding. And in doing research for those applications and seeing the data, it inspired me to reach out to my other two colleagues, Shayla Bott and Hillary Wolfley, about doing a collaborative project about female artists from different time periods. And we are creating an evening-length work next year that is going to be immersive. So the Van Gogh experience with the immersive art all around that's drawn, we're teaming up with the animation department, and they're going to animate our drawings, the artists' drawings, and we are creating dance to accompany that. We've already started that process, and so it's another year-long project that we're working on to highlight these aren't artists that are still living but may have been overlooked in their own time frame. So I'm focusing on an artist called Berthe Morisot. She was an impressionist in the impressionist style in Paris. So it's already influenced my work, and I'm excited to see how this will continue to influence my work. But I think one of the biggest things that it's done for me is introduced me to more people. I found Janice on a Google search. Did you know that, Janice? I was like, female product designers, and then Janice was there, and so I contacted Janice, and so I think that just making those connections is a way that it really influences my work as well. I don't know if either of you want to speak to that.
My name is Ellie. I am a political science major and a global women's studies minor. I was just interested to see or to know how the choreography changed throughout the process of transitioning it from stage to set, and how if that affected like the runtime at all, or how that project like evolved over time.
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to see if I can go back to the break room. So the break room was tiny. It was probably that chair to here. It's very small. Yeah. And normally we have a very large proscenium theater space. So the choreography was adapted. Eva did fly in for the production portion of the ballet, so for the filming of it. And so we took out lifts. We changed how turns were. I mean, Alex should probably talk about this. She's here. She danced it. But yeah, we changed lifts. In a lot of the group sections, we couldn't travel as much or changed directions and pathways of traveling to get it to fit in frame. So it did, and it all kind of basically happened the day of production. We did have one evening rehearsal the day before we filmed in the space, and that's when we're like, okay, you can't move there and you can't move there, but we essentially just did it as we filmed. And I'm very lucky to work with very talented dancers that are able to make those adjustments on the fly. So we were really, really lucky in that way.
That's really impressive. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I have a question from the chat. So Daniela Marquez asks, how was the filming process different from any other production due to the inclusiveness of women on the team?
Scott might want to talk about that on his perspective too. Why don't you talk about it? He nods. Okay. Go ahead, Scott. You come. Well, I was just going to say we had just come off of doing Giselle, a film together, and we filmed 3 days for Giselle, and we did overnight films in the forest. It's very cold, but almost all of your production people were guys, were dudes. So I think that changed a little bit in this. And the fact that, again, just finding and making new connections with female artists in the area was something that was different about this work for me.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I just wanted to point out, we actually had, so on our kind of camera team, there was myself, and then there was Brooke, and Brooke kind of took the lead there. But then we also had 2 other assistants that were Lana Stevens and Lauren Allen. this picture is of Lana Stevens, who kind of helped in the first half of the day, and then Lauren kind of took her spot because of scheduling issues. But one thing I like that one of the women earlier mentioned about the idea about not kind of going the path of least resistance or kind of what you're used to. I think for me, Brooke was someone that I've worked with before, but never in this kind of project. We worked on large-scale productions where we're, 2 of like 75 people working on a crew. And so it was just a great opportunity to not only work together and to look for those connections, but also take the time to do a lot of planning, to do a lot of mentorship, because we knew that that was a priority that we had established for this project. If that's an answer.
Yeah. Janice, anything for you? Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah. So one of my projects that I did a few years ago was an all-women-led theatrical production, and so I want to say it's really important to uplift each other and to help each other, because in scenic design, production design, it's always all men, and so we have stories to tell, we have things to say, they need to hear us, but it's also just good because we offer a perspective that not many men might know. And the thing is, these stories are also for women, and so it's really important to reach women as women. So I felt really empowered. I thought it was really special to be a part of this.
Would you say that the physical aspect has something to do with that? Because sets are heavy, equipment is heavy.
Yeah, I boss them around. I boss the men around. I tell them to lift things for me. But yeah, and that's the other thing is that, as a scenic designer, I work very closely with scene shops. And almost all of the carpenters that I work with are men. But I have worked with many women who work in prop shops, and they're amazing at what they do. And a lot of them are so talented. And I think what we need to do is to offer these roles, these positions, these jobs, because we are capable.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. I'm Sam Charles. I'm a mechanical engineering major, global studies minor. I love collaboration. I think collaboration is, by definition, an inclusive process. So based on your own experiences of collaborating with other people, what's collaboration's role in changing personal biases and like cultural norms and that stuff?
Whoa, that's deep. Wow. I think it's similar to what Scott was saying, and I don't know if either of you want to talk about this. I don't have to talk about it. I think it is listening. The collaborative process is about listening to each other and taking their perspectives into consideration and how that influences what you think of the process, whatever that process is, if it's in marriage, if it's in society. And I think that the key and the importance of listening to each other can't be overlooked. And I think that that ultimately is what, in my opinion, brings anyone around to change, is being open to hearing other opinions and others' viewpoints and experiences. So to me, and I think that I feel this when we all sit in production meeting together and we're talking and bouncing ideas and like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. I didn't even consider that. I think that that is the entire idea of collaboration, and I feel like it's so much more powerful than sitting by myself in my office talking to myself. Do either of you want to talk about that? Yeah.
Film as a medium is really interesting because it by nature requires collaboration. The only way it doesn't is if you just film someone without their permission, which isn't ethical, right? But one interesting thing is if we think about how collaboration and perspective are related. In a film, that's how we tell stories, is we limit the audience's perspective to what we want you to see and how we tell you essentially how we want you to look at our subjects. And so one of the kind of ways I think that's interesting in collaboration is just being open to seeing and depicting things maybe from a different view or perspective than you want. It's one of the reasons why we're still in editing right now, is because we capture all of these scenes and all of this action in a lot of different angles and a lot of different ways, and we've got different people looking at it. We have Ashley looking at it from a dance perspective. Our editor is an editor by the name of Amanda Hoover, and so Amanda, and actually she's not a member of this faith either, so she's got a totally different worldview perspective, and then I kind of have my perspective, and all three of us, as we look through the shots, have different reasons why we pick this one or that one or this one. I know even on this specifically Eva has a different aesthetic for how she likes to film things than I do. I love to be right up close. Eva likes to see things farther back. And so there was that kind of process of, well, can we do both? What do we have time for? Maybe we have one camera do wide, one camera do close. How close do we want to get? But how that does for a whole, I think, is as viewers of media all the time, I think we need to be cognizant of people are making choices in how they're depicting things and how they want us to see these things, but also just being patient and taking the time to look at things from different perspectives. Watching things that aren't maybe what we're familiar or comfortable to a degree of normalcy. And I think that's how change happens, is just being willing to look at those perspectives, even though it takes time. And but maybe one thing I'll add, sorry. I think with collaboration, sometimes we hear collaboration, we hear compromise, and we think that means I need to be okay with what anybody else says and just say yes. But I think an important collaboration is being true to your perspectives, not just letting yourself be steamrolled or giving in, but just taking that time to explain why you want to show something or create something in the way that you do. And I think everybody on this team, and Ashley and Janice were both great, and Eva was also great in kind of staying true but also listening. So it's kind of a balance.
Thank you.
I am Sadie Knutson. I'm a Global Women's Studies minor and a sociology major. I have a question for Scott, actually. I'm also a communications minor. I'm curious if there are any specific knowledge or skills you have to be able to film dance, and if filming dance is different than other pieces of work you might do for like a movie or whatever you do, other projects you do.
We should have Karen answer this question. Karen right here actually teaches our dance and film class here at BYU, and was my teacher. A little bit about my background. I came from a non-dance background, so it's kind of a long, crazy story, but essentially one day woke up and thought, I just want to make a dance film. I think that would be cool. And 5 years later, I've probably made between 200 to 300. So kind of crazy but out of control. But yeah, I think the difference is, I think anytime you try to take one medium and put it into another medium, there's the negotiation between the different priorities. Dancers love to see the full body. They love to see long takes. Filmmakers love to do crazy angles. We love to do fast takes and edit things. So it might sound kind of like a vanilla answer, but I think the number one thing is just being able to listen, being able to respect those that you're working with. And that goes for any kind of filmmaking, whether it's dance filmmaking, whether it's edit or commercials, whether it's feature length. But I will say too, I have started to develop just a tiny bit of appreciation or maybe even skill at seeing, where technique in dance, what looks good. Originally, I was like, that was an awesome jump. Like, I can't do that, therefore it's good choreography, and I've learned a little bit. But again, I think, it comes down to those collaborative skills for the start.
I'm Alex Hatch. I'm an English major and a ballet and women's studies minor. I had a question about women in the industry. We talked a lot about how directors and choreographers are predominantly men, but in our BYU experience, we have 3 female directors and most of our faculty are women. And I was just wondering if in the academic sphere, if you've seen a difference or if BYU is just unique and great.
I definitely think that there is a higher percentage of women in leadership positions in academia in dance. It's definitely not 100. All of us are women, but I think there's a higher percentage. I don't know why. Anybody want to, Corey, Shani? I don't know.
I think the numbers are consistent with what's happening all over the world. We're a saturated field with females, but if you actually look at leadership as far as people who are pairs, queens, we're very underrepresented.
Yes.
So it's definitely a glass ceiling.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. And we do look at as we look at the BYU population as a whole, we do see that for sure.
Thank you.
I feel bad. I know we're at time. But I'll just ask this really quickly, kind of jumping off of that. I love how you guys mentioned that there's this collaborative process happening and the importance of emphasizing women's voices within the leadership of these creative projects. I'm an acting major and a global women's studies minor, so I'm curious how within the actors and the dancers you put on stage, how they can have a voice that's brought to the discussion and the dialogue. rather than just being bodies on a stage?
I think that's really important, and I think it's something that the ballet world especially still struggles with. It's changing and developing very slowly, but the old school thought of you are here to service my choreography, or I can tell you exactly what to do. I feel like I, at least, am trying to make that shift in how I direct and teach. And I do, when I talk to my dancers, I'm like, we brought in an acting coach, for example. So I think having them develop their own characters in their pieces, in their choreography. If you're able to create an original choreography, you can always ask. I wasn't in the creative process with this particular piece, but I know one of my colleagues, Hillary Wolfley, often has student contribution as she choreographs, and so I know that that's something that is trying to shift in ballet a lot. Personally, as a dancer, I always just made it about what I was going to bring to the work. I couldn't change the steps, I couldn't change what I was performing, but I could change how I approached the work, and I could develop that in myself as an artist. And so I think that as dancers, we have an obligation to do our part as artists, as the body in the room, that we bring that artistic voice to what we're doing, even if it's not our steps or our story arc. So that there's that part of it. And then the people at the front of the room, I think it is shifting, but it's going to take time, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Dr. Parov and her colleagues, and thank you all for coming. If we could give them one more round of applause.